Good evening, YouTube. This is a very quick video in response to a question that was posted by one of the users in the Facebook group MTN Fountain Pen and Inks with regards to cleaning out fountain pens before switching colours. Now, one of the other members of the group, Peppian, had posted a comment about how he uses a syringe and a slightly modified ink cartridge to flush out the pen, and this is a method that I've been doing for some time myself, so I just wanted to shoot a very small video, a bit of a departure from my normal flip through videos, but just a short video demonstrating how the process works and what's involved. So what I have is my Kaweco Sport Classic. This is currently filled with Montblanc Oyster Grey, and I'm not really sure you can see, but there's not a huge amount of ink in there, and I'm going to use this to demonstrate the flushing system purely because this is a standard international cartridge that I use in this, and that was the question that was being asked. Now, this pen is currently fitted with a Monteverde mini converter, which is not actually a very good fit. You can see it comes out of the pen very easily, but at the time Kaweco hadn't released their squeeze type converters, so this was the best of a bad thing. So what I'm going to do first is just empty the ink out of the cartridge. I don't want to waste the ink unnecessarily. He says making a huge mess all over the desk. So there wasn't a huge amount of ink in there anyway, but don't want to waste that unnecessarily. Just going to put those two parts aside, clean up the splodge of ink there. And the thing we're going to be using today is a ink syringe. Now these are standard 10mm syringe units with the Lurlock top. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The only difference between this and the kind of medical syringes that you would use, absolutely no difference at all. It all comes down to the needle. And this needle, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but this needle is completely blunt. It's not been sharpened in any way. It's just cut off at a right angle, and you can see no problem at all. I originally bought some of these to use for transferring inks in my printer cartridge. So if you're using an inkjet printer, you can buy the manufacturer's own cartridges, but you can also buy bottles of ink, and using one of these you can refill your cartridges. But they come in very handy for transferring inks into fountain pens, and also for helping you to fill pens where you can't quite get the pen into the bottle, for example. So this is how I've purchased them from eBay. I originally bought 6, I believe. They're sealed and sterile. They're standard medical grade syringes. The only difference is that you're using a blunt needle. So I have one here already opened. You can see that this has been used considerably. Most of the markings on the outside are gone, but that is not really an issue. And I'm not actually going to be using the syringe needle for this part of the process. Instead, we're going to talk about these modified ink cartridges. Now, what I have here are a number of different cartridges for the variety of pens that I use. Let me just take them all out and we'll have a look. So, we have a little bit of flexible hose. We have a standard international cartridge where I have drilled out the base of the cartridge. So you can see there that would normally be closed up. What I've done is I've gone in with a very sharp knife, scalpel, and I've just poked through and just gradually cleaned it and reamed out the back of that hole. So what it means is that's open at both ends, and you can effectively see right through the end of the cartridge. I have the same for one of my pilot cartridges. This is the one that was used in my pilot vanishing point, which are notoriously tricky to clean. That's another vanishing point one, but that one's actually still sealed. I have one here for a Lamy Safari. Again, all I've done is I've reamed out the back so it's open all the way through. And another one here for my Cross Matrix fountain pen. So these are the ones that I tend to use the most often as far as cartridges go. But today we are going to be using the standard international short cartridge. And where I've cut that hole out, so really just punch through it with a scalpel, with a knife, and just wound this round and round and round, effectively drilling a hole out in the back. This hole is cut to fit tightly onto the end of the syringe. So with a little bit of squeezing, you can kind of jam that on there. Now, in Pepin's comment, he mentioned that he would wrap a bit of tape around this to keep it from spurting out everywhere. But as you can see, that's quite a tight fit. So hopefully that shouldn't be leaking any water anywhere. And all it is just a normal old cartridge with a hole drilled in the back. So to demonstrate the process, I have a little container here for my dirty water. I have a cup of clean water. And all I'm going to do is draw up some water using the syringe. Try and do this so you can see this on camera. There we go. Attach that into the pen as if you're connecting a normal cartridge, and then just gently squeeze. And you should see that that will start to flush out the ink. Now, you can probably also see that there's a little bit of water leaking out from the edge. Again, Pepin's system would have had some electrical tape wrapped around that. But that's half a syringe, so I'm going to go again. Now, this is not as tight a fit as it could be, so I'm not actually drawing a vacuum. So I've got a nice full syringe now. Let's run that through again. And you'll see already the pen is running clear. So we're not just rinsing the tip under the water and cleaning off the feed. We're actually running water all the way through the feed, all the way through those ink channels, clearing out all of those fins, and hopefully, I say hopefully, flushing out from underneath the nib as well. Now the reason I say that hopefully is that for those of you that use fountain pens regularly, you'll be aware that the pen doesn't actually draw ink up through the nib. It draws it up through a pointing device, draws it up through a little hole in the bottom there. So as I'm pushing water back out of the pen, yes, most of that's going to be shooting out through that hole because that's the easiest route for the water to take, but some of it will be flooding through under the nib, through the feed, and through all those little fins. So this pen was actually loaded with Mont Blanc Oyster Grey, which is a relatively easy ink to work with. Not a particularly dirty ink, it's not heavily pigmented, so it cleans very quickly. And you saw that there was ink in the pen. I had been using the pen today, so it wasn't as if the ink had been dried solid in there over a number of months. But hopefully you can see that this is running clear already. So, a bit of air in there. Let's get the water out. Give that a little swish around. Now, you may notice here that on this Quaker Sport Classic, because it's the demonstrator edition, I have actually attempted to use this as an eyedropper, so ink has creeped in between the feed collar and the outer casing of the pen, of the section. So that ink in there I probably could get out if I wanted to hammer the entire feed collar out through the pen, but I'm likely to damage it that way, and to be honest it doesn't really bother me too much. So I'll give it a bit of a swish around just to make sure I've gotten rid of any ink that's settled in the top here. And just wipe this over some paper, and you should be able to see that there is no ink residue in there at all. That's just nice clean water coming through from the nib and the feed. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to quickly clean off the cartridge as well. This isn't particularly difficult. It's just drawing up ink and then squirting it back out again. Now, if I wanted to be really fancy about it, to be honest, because this is one of these Monteverdi mini converters, you can actually pull the end of this out completely. Little agitator that I use in there as well, little clear plastic bead, and then I could just rinse that out. In fact, if I wanted to sacrifice this altogether, there's every chance that this would actually fit on the end quite nicely. Seal that up with a little bit of tape, and then it saves me cutting up one of my cartridges. But why ruin this when I've got loads and loads of empty cartridges knocking around anyway? So that's been completely cleaned. I do occasionally put a little bit of silicone grease on there just to keep that rubber washer in good condition. But that is the pen, the nib and the feed flushed using a ink syringe. Now, I've seen a lot of guys on the internet demonstrating this with other types of syringes. So you've got the bulb syringe that Brian Goulet and Stephen Brown demonstrate with, and really that's one of those I think Stephen refers to it as a snot sucker for babies. So just a big squeezy ball with a rubber point on the end. I haven't been able to find those easily on eBay or in chemists here in the UK. These, on the other hand, were I think about £2 or £3 for a pack of 6. So this was almost a negligible purchase. But do be very careful that when you do buy them, you specify ink syringe, or you search for ink syringe, and that way you know that the needle point is going to be blunt. It's going to be cut off at a square angle or an unsharpened needle. You don't want to be messing around with a sharpened needle, and I'm guessing not everybody's going to have a grinding wheel in their garage to then blunt it back off. So save yourself the hassle and just buy ink syringes or syringes advertised as ink syringes on eBay, and that will do the job very nicely. So there is my ink syringe adapter. As I've said, I've done that with a number of my cartridge types, the ones, well, certainly the pens that I have the trouble with cleaning. So I've got my standard International Short, I've got my Parker, I've got my Lamy, and I've got my Cross. I did mention a little bit of flexible hose that I use sometimes. Well, the hose is just a alternative to jamming the adapter straight onto the syringe. So I can attach that to there, attach the hose directly to my syringe. It takes a little bit of fiddling to get that in. There we go, you can just about see that's in there. And then, do this on camera, I can then drop water through that. And that just gives you a little bit more flexibility, pardon the pun, a little bit more flexibility when you're working on a pen, or if you don't have much room, or you're trying to maneuver this around a tight corner. And this was just a little bit of latex fuel hose that I used to use from my model racing car days. But that's the process. Got a nice clean pen. All the ink has been flushed out of that. I've cleaned the converter as well. And that's how I like to keep my pens in storage. I'll give them a good clean out, make sure they run clear, and then they will then go away in storage like that. So I don't have to worry about anything caking up in the feed. Now, if you do have a particularly troublesome ink, and where I've been using things like, let me show you, where I've been using some lovely inks like J. Herbin Rouge Hematite, this ink has a particularly nasty habit of staining. This is the one with the gold particles in the ink. but this has a very nasty habit of staining cartridges and staining pens. In fact, this cartridge, actually no, not that cartridge, I can show you. My other fountain, but my other J Herbin, if I can find it. Nope, I can't seem to find that at the moment, but my other there we are. Sorry, got it. My other J Herbin is a Kaweco J Herbin, sorry. My other Kaweco is the rollable, and in the rollable I just use a standard international short, and you can see that this one is stained pink. This particular cartridge, I'm probably going to cut this down and use this for a similar process, but this particular cartridge held rouge hematite for a matter of a month. I filled it using my ink syringe, just drew up some from here, injected it directly in and then connected it to the pen. This rouge hematite was in this cartridge for about a month. I used the cartridge completely, used it for highlighting documents and such, and you'll see that that has stained the cartridge pink. So where you do have particularly stubborn inks that will stain or damage your pen or your cartridge, and you're really worried about getting these out completely, yes, it's stained pink, but there is no ink in here. There is no pigment left in there. It's just what's leached into the plastic. What I could do is mix some water with a couple of drops of bleach, fill that with the bleach, and within a matter of minutes that'll be all nice and clear again. I'm not doing it because it's largely cosmetic. It doesn't affect the cartridge, it doesn't affect the plastic. But if you are using one of these pens as an eyedropper, and you filled the whole barrel with a staining ink like Noodler's Bay State Blue, so some of these J Herbin inks, and that stained the inside of the barrel, well, the best thing to do is to take that off completely, soak it in some water with a few drops of bleach in it. Nothing strong. I'm not talking about a 50-50 mix. I'm talking about a mug or a cup of water with maybe 1 or 2 drops in it. You're cleaning a pen, you're not cleaning your toilet. So the bleach in there, very, very mild solution. The bleach will then attack all the pigmentation and get that nice and clear again. You don't want to be leaving it in there overnight, maybe 20 or 30 minutes at the most. And to be fair, I don't like leaving bleach open in a container around the house. So you can use bleach to flush through your pens, you can use bleach to flush through cartridges where you've got very stubborn ink. Do be very careful with that. Do make sure you're using that in a safe and controlled manner, well ventilated area. Chlorine and bleach flumes are very, very nasty things, and you don't want to be leaving bleach in an open container like this, sitting on a desk, partly around computer equipment, but also where you may have children or animals or spouses in the house that don't know what you're doing. So if you are going to be using any chemical solvents, do that with care. For me, this isn't a problem. I don't really worry about that. The pen itself is nice and clean. So that was just a very quick response to the question posted on Facebook today. I hope that's helped. If you do want to hunt around for these ink syringes, I'll see if I can find a listing on eBay and pop that in the comments. So if you want to buy some, you'll have an idea of where to look. But thank you very much, and have a good evening.